For a great cup of joe, there's one thing you should know. Your morning brew can also be playful. Buff Boy Brewing guys make the temperature rise. And you surely feel naughty when you swallow our coffee. If you want some real heat, give your mouth a fine treat. You will want some more, rest assured. Buff Boy Brewing, you can't get enough of.
It's time for The Scribble, your weekly fix of celebrity chats, bizarre stories in the news, and basic random chatter with best-selling author and syndicated radio host Jeremy Bradley. Make sure your seat is in the upright and locked position and your barf bag is securely in place. Here's Jeremy Bradley.
Thank you very much, Larson. Jeremy Bradley here. This is The Scribble. Thank you so much for tuning in on your favorite podcast app. And happy anniversary to my parents. Now, this is not something that truthfully, I don't know that I've ever even wished them a happy anniversary or, happy birthday to my mom or dad or whoever. Like, I don't do shout outs like that. But this is their 50th fucking anniversary. That's a great way to celebrate it, isn't it? And so, I think back to their 40th anniversary and then their 25th anniversary because I was around for that. I was just a baby. No, I'm 42. I'm turning 43 in a couple of weeks. So, my brother and his wife had mentioned that, we were thinking about, what sort of a party we could do for them or whatever. And I mean, my parents are very low key anyway. So when we were in our, 25 years ago, I would have been, just early 20s, right? Or no, sorry, I would have been in my, math is not my thing, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to make myself look like an idiot. I would have been a teenager, right? Yeah. So my brothers would have been probably early 20s, I guess. And so I remember feeling excited about it's their 25th. So let's plan something. It's kind of we're gonna put on a party for our parents, and we had the help of our aunts and uncles and my grandparents or whatever too. But I mean, it was kind of on us as being the kids. And so I remember planning the 25th, and I remember planning the 40th. Obviously, I was a bit older than at that point. I would have been 30. Well, I would have been 30. If I'm 42 now, I would have been 32. And so I'm going to talk about just the relationship they have, and then our family life as five of us, right? My two older brothers, me, and my parents. And that's coming up on The Scribble, and it starts right after this.
Isn't it crazy that you wait for payday, but before you know it, you're strapped for cash again? It's time to stop blowing your money and become a smart spender with the book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com. Learn simple ways to cut costs at home every day and during special times of the year. Don't go broke at Christmas. Don't remortgage the house for a fancy vacation. The book is filled with tips to save you money throughout the year. Check out the best-selling book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com or on Amazon and iTunes.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. Speak Free with JB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
JB here on The Scribble. When you watch a show like The Bachelor or Bachelorette, and you sort of get nauseous when you hear these contestants or stars of the show talk about how, my parents' relationship, my grandparents' relationship. And I've said, even on Twitter, that you can't compare them. I mean, both of my grandparents are dead, but they were married 60-something years, okay? They still, even towards the end, would hold hands walking down the street. Their kitchen, they had a very sort of a small house, and so when you had everybody over, my grandma would have to basically sit on his lap, kind of or sit on his knee at the kitchen table, and they were just still very lovey-dovey, very romantic. So when my so my grandpa was the first to go. And then when my grandma died, we had to clear out the house and everything like that. So we were going through this magazine rack that was beside their couch. And there was a book in there. I don't remember the exact title. So let's just say it was called like Cooking for Lovers or Cooking, something like that. Cooking for Your Loved One or Cooking for Lovers, I think is actually what it was called. And I just remember sitting there going, that is so fucking sweet. That is, these are people that are in their 80s. I don't remember how old my grandpa was when he died. He died about more than maybe close to 15 years ago, I guess, maybe now. My grandma died during Corona. But you just kind of go, that's really fucking sweet. Like 60-some years married, and now I don't know how, when they got that book or whatever, but the fact is they had it. I mean, come on. So, we have no divorce in our family, and so relationships, mean something. It was kind of like you were, it was a serious thing and you got married, and that's kind of it. Whether people are still happy in their relationships, I don't know. That's not my business. But I just remember that was, going back to what I was saying about The Bachelor. So that was kind of my inspiration when I was growing up. Again, we didn't have social media and reality dating shows and all that other crap. So it was still, a successful relationship was still an attainable thing today. I don't know. But, so that's something that I wanted was, you all want that when you have, parents that are together, you see the love from your grandparents that they have for each other. Wow, I want that. So it's very difficult though when I don't even try to stop laughing at these people on the reality shows because they feel like, that because my grandparents did it, because my parents did it, that's, it can happen for me. Well, unless your parents just recently got married in the world of dating apps and social media and reality dating and all that other stuff, I don't really know. It's not the same thing. It's just not. A relationship is not a relationship as it was back then. There's no arguing that. That's a fact. It's not like... I think back to when my brothers have both been married for, well, their kids are almost in their 20s. So they've been married, let's round up and say 20 years. So that means, as far as I know, they've never been on a dating website. They've never had a dating profile. They've never, had a dating app because they just, so, and same thing for me. I mean, before I was in my relationship, I was on the radio, so I always kind of felt like as a media personality, it would be really weird because all of a sudden people were like, hey, that's the guy from the radio. He's on it. So I've never been on. And then, married 9 years, so I don't have a dating app or a dating profile. But relationships are just very different. I mean, I think about when I was growing up, the early memories of my parents, they were never lovey-dovey. Like they were never... I remember, like, my dad would give my mom a kiss when he would come home from work. So my mom was a teacher. She was working at our school. She was finished work at 3:30. He would get home at about 5 o'clock or so. So she was home first is what my point is. And she would be, at the kitchen doing the mom thing, which was what moms were doing then, was making supper, right? And so he would come in. He would, give her a kiss. And... that was really sort of about it for the affection. They just never, I'm sure there was, a kiss before bed or whatever, but we weren't, I wasn't in the room for that. But, there was never, I don't remember ever seeing my parents kiss outside of that 5 p.m. greeting after work. I'm not saying that there just wasn't affection in the relationship. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying there wasn't love. I'm just saying they weren't, holding hands and like my grandparents were. So those are two relationships that were, arguably in a different time than we're in now. Not even arguably. Again, that's a fact. But my grandparents super affectionate and cuddly and touchy, and then you got my parents who whatever. So I saw both sides of what a relationship is, affectionate and non-affectionate, and I kind of wanted something in the middle. I didn't want a guy who was who'd be all over me and whatever, but you still want somebody who wants to put their hand on your knee or hold your hand or whatever it is. So there was not a big affection growing up in our house, but it was just, I think, my brother's not quite 50, so it's not like my parents had kids right away, but they were married for a few years before they started having kids. There's 3 of us, as I said, my 2 older brothers and me. And so we didn't have very hands-on parents in the sense that our dad wasn't coming outside and playing with us, because that was just something like the kids would just play together in our neighborhood, right? You'd have your kids, the classmates that you went to school with, or the, kid across the street, or, whatever it was, the parents weren't out there playing with us. That was just something that you played with kids your age, and the parents would sit inside or in the backyard or whatever. And if you need to talk to them, you go and talk to them. I remember when my brother started to have kids, though. Now my dad's a grandpa, right? So I remember my brother Trevor saying to me, "Do you ever remember Dad sitting on the floor doing a puzzle with us? Do you ever remember Dad coming out?" And I would say, "No, we never did that with us." So it's funny because he wasn't. Again, I'm not saying that my dad was not loving. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying he wasn't involved when we were growing up, because again, it was just a different time. So these are memories that I have when we were talking about, their 50 years of marriage. Like, I was like, yeah, those are the memories that I have of mom and dad. Very hands off, very just because that's what you did. Go outside and, it's Saturday morning or whatever the hell time of day it is. You go outside, you're playing with your friends in the neighborhood. Come back when the street lights come on was sort of the rule. If you're on your bike, don't go past this street or this street, and, drive up and down the block, whatever it is. That's just how parenting was back then. And then I think about when we would go camping, and then we ended up, we got a cottage out on the lake. But for the first few years of my life, we would go camping every summer. And, each party in the relationship had their role. So my mom would do the packing up of stuff inside. My dad would do the outside stuff, which would be hooking up the trailer and connecting the plugs so that the signal lights and things worked, on the trailer. And so it was just a routine, right? Like, okay, it's Saturday morning. We're going to be going out to the lake today. We're going to be setting up the trailer for 2 weeks or whatever it was. She does her thing. He does his thing. We do our thing, which was, pack or, whatever we had to do. And then we would go, and my parents would have sort of the same usual kind of bickering that they would about things. And I remember thinking then as a kid, like, I don't think they like each other. Like they would just kind of have these like sort of weird arguments where she would snap at him or he would, get frustrated with her. And I'm thinking when I was probably about 5 or 6, they never had actual like screaming, fights, and, they never did that in front of us. But I just kind of remember going like, I don't think that they love each other. It doesn't seem like they do. And so again, when you're that young, you don't realize that, there's times where you're probably not going to like your partner. You are going to have a fight. You are going to have a disagreement. You are going to have something that, rubs you the wrong way or rubs him or her the wrong way. And that's just a relationship when you're together all those years, right? But I just remember thinking that a couple of times. And then I realized that I haven't seen them, as I just said, I haven't seen them have a screaming match with each other. I haven't seen them, one of them go storming off into a room and slamming a door. We never saw anything like that as kids. So I didn't know if that was something where it's like, we don't do this in front of the kids. If we have a problem, we take it behind closed doors, or we do it when they're not around. And so we never witnessed that. We never saw them in the however many years we lived with them. My brothers moved out when they were in their early 20s because they got married, as I said. I moved out when I was 25 is when I moved out. So they had arguments. Like I said, they would snap at each other about things, but never a shouting match, screaming back and forth. Now, this goes back to what I was saying about the generational thing is my mom had said that she never saw that from her parents, from my grandparents. She never saw that between them. And now now we fast forward to present day, and I see my brothers in their relationships, and their wives have no problem taking a strip out of them in front of all of us. We don't even live with them. But at a family get-together, my brother's wife, she'll snap at him, and she'll even come, if it's, the guys are outside or whatever in the yard, and she'll, Trevor, I said, Trevor. And you're just kind of looking at him going, shit. And he's embarrassed, obviously, because, he just got called out by his wife. And so you just see the dynamic of how relationships have changed over the years. Trevor grew up in the same house that I grew up in. He never saw a wife doing that to a husband or a husband doing that to a wife, but somehow along the line, in my relationship, it's the same thing. We might have our disagreements or fights, but I've said And we see our situation is different because we own companies and we work together. So we have staff that, that's first and foremost. I said, nothing like this ever. If we have a disagreement, it does not play out in front of the staff. We don't really have screaming matches anymore because at the very start of our relationship, we kind of laid the groundwork as to how this relationship is going to be, how we're going to communicate with each other. It's never going to happen in public because I love going into a restaurant or a store and then hearing a couple arguing or a couple fighting, at the next table or whatever it is. I enjoy that because it's kind of like they're totally forgetting that there are other people around and it's embarrassing. I would think it's embarrassing. Indoor voices, keep things calm. And how do you not sit there, just like I said about my brother? Like, how do you not sit there going, oh, that poor fucker's going to get it when he gets home? No. So if there was ever a time, and I would have to go back to, like I said, the very early days, because we don't have fights in our relationship. But I'm trying to think if we ever got on each other's case, like in public somewhere. And I don't think that it ever happened. If it did, I would have shut it down very quickly. And I would have just looked at him and said, not in public. Wait until we get home. Oh, there was, yes, you know what? There were a couple times where we were, yeah, that's right. We did. He was kind of getting on my case, and I just said, we're going to talk about this at home. We're not doing this in front of, a bunch of strangers and causing a scene. No, that's not, our relationship is our business. It's not going to be. And he agreed. He was like, yeah, no, that's right. I get it. And so we'll hash it out. And then you train them to that point where when you're just giving them that stare and they know they're in shit when you get home. That's how you know you've got them wrapped around your finger, ladies and gentlemen. No, but it's just, it's kind of fun to see how, what sort of relationship traits or characteristics or quirks you get from your parents when you're in a relationship, right? You see them growing up and the dynamic they have, and whether it's, as I was talking about, one of them has the role in the kitchen, the other one has the yard work or the technical stuff or whatever it is. And then you just, that's just, you pick up your role as you go. And so 50 years they've been married, and I was talking about the 25th anniversary, which was obviously the silver anniversary. And I was a teenager, and we had it at the, there was a church down the street from my grandparents' house where we had pretty much every baby shower was there, every christening was there, every wedding shower, baby shower. I think almost every wedding was there. Actually, the church service, I think, was all. So we had there, and there was a hall. So you had the church was one building on the left, and then there was like a hall building on the right. They were connected, but you'd have the service, and then we'd have the big room and the hall decorated the night before. So you'd have the church service, and then we'd go. So my parents didn't, my parents aren't churchy, so they didn't do renewing their vows or anything like that. They weren't that churchy. But anyway, so we had gone to the hall where we'd had so many other get-togethers before, and it was always fun because you'd get everybody together the night before. So that's my aunts, uncles, my cousins, my grandparents, my brothers. Did they have wives? They didn't have wives at the time. I don't remember if the girlfriends came. Maybe they would have. But you get everybody, and because we'd had so many functions, again, everybody had their role. My grandma would do the head table. She would decorate this stuff. My grandpa would do this. My aunts and uncles would do this. The guys would set up the tables. The women would make little dainties or the sandwiches in the kitchen. And the kids would put up balloons or whatever it was. So we all just kind of got to work. And so that's what I remember from the 25th anniversary. Believe it or not, by the way, I still have one of the pictures in a frame in my office at home of my mom is standing in front of us. So it's my two brothers and me in behind, and then my mom's in front of us. And so she's like, oh, take a picture of how tall my boys are. So she's obviously in front of us. She can't see us. And so somebody gets, their camera, and my brother taps me. If you're looking at the picture, I was on the left-hand side. My middle brother was in the middle, and then my oldest brother was on the other side. And my brother in the middle taps my shoulder, and he points to make a face. You have to remember, this is 25 years ago, so we didn't have phone cameras or whatever. You had to get your film developed. You had to take your camera in, right? You had to drop it off, so you wouldn't know this. You only had 12 pictures on a roll of film, 24 pictures, 36 maybe if you were fancy. And so you're limited to how many pictures you can take of that day. And so we knew that she's not going to be happy because we basically ruined this picture by sticking out our tongues and making faces. But as soon as I got that, I was just like, I have to have this picture. And so then when I moved into my own house years later, I made sure she did not want that photo at her house anymore. So I took it. So I remember that. And then with the 40th, that was tough, for our family because, like I said, my grandpa had died a few years earlier. And so this was the first milestone that we had in the family. We didn't have any weddings at that point. There wasn't a major birthday it didn't happen that way. So that was kind of the first real big, we're going back to this church again, and so it was tough because he was around for the baby showers, whatever that we had, but this was our first time going back to that church hall where it's like, oh shit, this is different now, and it's really weird because if one of my cousins wasn't there, not a big deal, whatever, who the fuck cares, but that's grandpa, like he's the top of the top of the family. I was top of the food chain. We're not eating. We're not killing him. But he's like, he wasn't there. That was a big fucking deal. That was big. That hurt all of us. It was an emotional thing. Obviously for my mom too, right? That was her dad. So I just remember being like, oh, okay, this is not like, it's fun, but it's not the same. Because you look back at all those pictures that you have from each of those get-togethers, and there's one person missing now, right? Like it was different. So it's strange that that's the memory that I have of the 40th, right? Like it wasn't about, honestly, like what happened. I don't know. Did people give speeches? I remember feeling that my grandpa's not there. This is a sad day. So it's weird. I've blocked out whatever fun that we had. I'm sure we had fun. We've never had a get together that was, lame or boring or whatever. But that's the memory that I have of the 40th. And as I said, my parents are very sort of low key. So in terms of like big parties and things like that, that's not really their thing anyway. So when it came to my mom turned 60 during the pandemic. So we were limited into, we had restrictions where you could only have like a certain amount of people over or whatever it was. And then eventually you could only have like 5 people in your backyard. I don't know if it was the same thing where you live or lived. But we kind of broke the rules because it was like, well, this is her 60th. And so, she also just retired from working at the school that she was at. She was there for like 30 some years. So it was kind of like, well, we kind of have to, which just sucks because we're also outside breaking the rules. So it's like, it's not like we're hiding in a basement where people wouldn't know. It's like, no, we're all in their fucking backyard. But so for their 40th, yeah, it wasn't necessarily low key, but it wasn't like, and my parents don't really travel or do anything. So their whole thing about, giving us gifts or whatever is always just like, we don't need gifts. Just, just come out and let's just have, the day together or whatever. And let's just have that celebration, which is great, right? Because that's cheaper for us. It's true though. I mean, can you imagine if we all had to kick in to send them on a cruise for 2 weeks? That's fucking expensive, But no, they're not big travelers, and so it's just, we're kind of happy about that. It's like, great, let's just, same thing with her birthday, like my mom's birthday. She's like, let's just go for lunch. Like we don't have to, or just come over, we'll play Nintendo. My mom makes these slushes that I don't even know what it's vodka, but she puts it in an ice cream pail, and it's so much booze that it doesn't even fully freeze because, and so we'll do that where she'll have this big pail of ice cream, or this pail from ice cream, dumped in an entire bottle of vodka, orange juice, I think, and then like maybe ginger ale or something, whatever. And she freezes it, for a day or two, or has it in the freezer. And then that's what we have, and we play Nintendo bowling. And it's just crazy because she gets tipsy and my dad gets really competitive, and then they start kind of, snipping at each other. And so, those are those kinds of memories, especially as you get older, where, I'm in my 40s now, my dad is, 70 and she's in her mid 60s. You have a different relationship with your parents when you're an adult, right? So you can have these, like, think about it when you're a teenager, when you're early 20s. It's like, you're not gonna think like I'm ever gonna be at a Saturday night playing video games with my parents, really, right? Like there's no. But at a certain age where you're kind of just like, whatever, maybe the alcohol helps to get you motivated to participate, but whatever. So for 50, my brother and his wife had reached out and said, what should we do? We were thinking of not going to that church because, so again, this would now be the first big to-do in the family with my grandma having passed. So, that was their church, and the reason that we went there was because that was their church and that was sort of their preference, you kind of do that for your grandparents, right? Like they love this place, so that's why we were going. And I said it's probably for the best, right? Because as I mentioned, my parents don't do the church thing, so it would be kind of weird that we would just go to this church that has no connection to my parents really anymore. And they're just not church people, so why would we? When we could get, maybe it's a community center hall, right? Or even just one of those little like private rooms. Restaurants will have sort of the little banquet room sometimes for a larger group. It's private, it's closed off. And they were saying, well, how many people, what do we want to do? Do you do something catered? Do we want to, nobody wants to host things at their house anymore just because it's just too many people and clean up and whatever. I have a very large house. We could very well do something at my house, but I'm just like, I don't want children and, everybody at my house. No thanks. If it comes to a choice between me hosting and me paying to host it somewhere else, I will pay to host it somewhere else. I'm not having people in my house. We have a very nice house. I don't want everybody over. Truthfully, honestly, like we have a very big house. We got a pool in the backyard. We got everything. I would say probably about, let me do some quick math here. 95% of my family, by the way, has still never been to my house, and I've owned it for 17 years. My immediate family is, and even then, they haven't been over in years. I would say, how many of my cousins have been to my house? 2. We don't host people. It's like we'll go to somebody else's place, we'll go to the party at a public establishment. We don't have people over. My family doesn't come. Only 2 of my aunts and uncles have ever been over, and I think that was when I moved in. I gave them a tour when I bought my house. We have an amazingly gorgeous house. We have a huge house. Hey, Jeremy, why don't you host the 50th at your place? You got this nice big yard. No, I'm good. I'm surprised I was invited to this thing. But yeah, so for the 50th, it was kind of like, well, what are we going to do? Should we just... And I said, Mom and Dad, they're not the big... She's not going to, get all dressed up. She's going to, they just want to do something low-key. They just want... And so that's what we said. Like we got a private room that, at a restaurant, and you can have it for the day, right? So you can go in and like decorate in the morning or whatever it is. We booked it for the entire evening, so it's not like they're going to be rushing. Oh, we got an 8:30. We got to get you guys out. And so that was just kind of what we did. And it was, and they say no gifts, but I mean, people are going to give gifts, right? I mean, it's their 50th. But, that was kind of the fun, though, was going through... We're out of time already. They're already wrapping me. But the fun thing was to go through the old pictures and just take that walk down memory lane. And, you just laugh at things. And then you do kind of get upset because you see those people who have passed, right? Like, my grandparents. And my mom, her sister died of breast cancer when I was... So I wasn't even born yet. She died on Christmas. So I was born in August. She died 8 months or 9 months earlier on Christmas Day. So 43 years ago now, or almost 43 years ago. And so when you're going through the pictures, right, you're kind of seeing, I never got to meet Auntie Nancy, but, heard all about her. And so there's that as well, right? You're going through the old photo albums and here. So it's just, it's ups and downs on emotions when you're doing something like that. But yeah, 50 years of my parents being married. And, it's interesting now because they are wrapping me up. We got to go. Shit. I was just going to say, when I was a kid growing up, I mentioned about how, like, you look up to your grandparents, you see those relationships. When I look at my relationship now, I don't feel that way. I don't want to, I don't look at my parents and go, yeah, because they're at the age, though, where they're also kind of like grumpy and curmudgeon-y and more so than they were back then, right? Like they're kind of, my dad's the grumpy old man now. So I look at that and go, actually, I don't want my relationship to be like that. But it works for them. So who am I to say, right? So Anyway, a happy anniversary to my parents. And I got to wrap up this show because we're done. All right, Jeremy Bradley, Scribble. Talk to you next time. Bye, everybody.
Who are the Kardashians feuding with now? What did that little thug Justin Bieber do this time? Who's getting hitched? And who's headed for Splitsville? Hear the latest celebrity news and gossip every day on Entertainment Wrap-Up. The good, the bad, the ugly, but mostly the ridiculously hilarious. It's all recapped in this daily segment at entertainmentwrapup.com. Have a laugh at the expense of the rich and famous when they take themselves way too seriously. It's 3 minutes of time-wasting fun at entertainmentwrapup.com. Check out Entertainment Wrap-Up at entertainmentwrapup.com. Brought to you by Speak Free Books.
It's never too early to start thinking about your next holiday. Have you checked out Mexico recently? From tequila tasting, swimming with horses, to ziplining through the jungle and watching whales and dolphins in their natural habitat, Puerto Vallarta has it all. Visit mexico.jbonair.com to see all the fun PV has to offer. That's at mexico.jbonair.com for hundreds of photos, interviews, and videos from around the tourist hotspot. Check out mexico.jbonair.com for all the fun. That's mexico.jbonair.com.
We hear you chirping. Get scribbling. Tweet up the Scribble at The Scribble Show. Join the discussion with Jeremy Bradley. It's all going down right now on Twitter at The Scribble Show and at thescribbleshow.com. Want more Scribble? Check out thescribbleshow.com for past shows, celebrity interviews, cheapskate tips, and more. That's at thescribbleshow.com and on Twitter at The Scribble Show. The Scribble is a Speak Free media presentation.